It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. You can email me at Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, F-E-R-E-N-C, at yourpersonalbank.com, or call me at toll-free 866-268-4422, and yes, you will reach me. Today's going to be a little different because I've had an uneasy feeling for a while. I'm not typically motivated by hyperbole. I like to think things through, take a common sense approach, and not overreact. But events that have occurred recently lead me to believe that the conditions are now being set for what could possibly be the next civil war. I don't say that lightly, and I also don't believe that the next civil war, if it occurs, will be like the past one. There'll be significant differences. And before I go any further, please understand, I'm not encouraging in any way harm to other people or violence of any kind. I'm merely using common sense, study of history, human nature. I understand history doesn't repeat itself, but it often does rhyme. A couple of key things that have occurred that have caused me reason to be concerned. The first is this Virginia redistricting. Virginia is a purple state by definition, has 11 House seats, 6 currently Democrats, 5 Republicans. This redistricting effort would change the 11 House districts of Virginia, 10 Democrats to 1 Republican. It passed recently by a very narrow margin. Northern Virginia, which encompasses the DC suburbs, voted heavily yes in favor of redistricting, and there were significant mail-in ballots that were heavily in favor of the redistricting effort. Now, I'm not saying definitely that there was issues with the vote, but the patterns remain the same. And there are a number of legal minds, elected officials, who are questioning the results. It's ironic when you look at these close races, the pattern nearly is always the same in favor of the Democrats. It's basic pattern recognition, folks. Now, why this is so egregious is Virginia only a few months ago had a Republican governor. And in 2024, Kamala won the state by about 5 or 6 points. This is a purple state. This is not a heavily leaning blue state or red state for that matter. Now, everyone gerrymanders. It's just the Democrats do have a history of doing it better. They created 5 districts that look like little snakes up into Northern Virginia, the DC suburbs. These are areas that rely heavily on the federal government, many government employees, NGOs. It's one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. And this creates a situation of no representation for most of the rest of the state. How would you feel if you were someone who lived in Shenandoah Valley and were being represented by somebody who lived in Northern Virginia, basically DC suburbs? You have nothing in common. What this gerrymandering did is 51% of the state disenfranchised the other 49%. And this is why we have an electoral college and live in a representative republic and not a democracy. All you need for unchecked tyranny is 50% plus 1. And on the proposed amendment that the Virginia voters voted on, it stated, should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily, quote unquote, adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming elections. Who's against fairness? I've never seen a proposal voted on with such biased language. Also, the amendment was printed in 4 different languages. Why on earth would any ballot be printed in any other language other than English? That is the official language of the United States. And going a little bit further with this whole gerrymandering, again, everyone does it. But this goes back way past Texas or Virginia now. In New England, the 6 states are 60% Democrat and 40% Republican. They contain 33 House seats between them. If the districts were fairly represented, you'd have about 13 Republicans representing New England. But the fact is, there is only one. 40% of the population of New England is not being represented at all. And this is the modern-day definition of taxation without representation. Ironically, it's happening in the birthplace of the revolution. New Mexico averages 46% Republican votes on a typical election, yet has 0 Republican congressional seats. Illinois, 44% Republican, yet only has 3 seats, or only 17% representation. Oregon, 41%, yet only 1 of their 6 seats are Republican. We hear about this fairness, but the reality is New England's 33 House seats only has 1 Republican representing it, and it's 40% Republican. How is that fair? And out of the 121 House seats that are represented by California, Illinois, New York, Maryland, New Jersey, and Oregon, all blue states, by the way, on average, 42% of the votes are Republican, yet Republicans only hold about 20% or half of the House seats available that would represent the voters. There is some good news on this front. This whole effort to disenfranchise nearly half the voters in a very purple state like Virginia may actually backfire, because Florida is now considering redistricting their seats. It's a tit for tat. If Florida does indeed do that, the 4 seats the Democrats picked up in Virginia will be nullified by Florida. It would be better if congressional districts were designed to be fairly represented by their voters, rather than disenfranchising large swaths. And that's where my concern lies. If more and more people feel disenfranchised, their vote no longer counts. It doesn't matter what they do. They're going to become disillusioned, frustrated, or even worse. The second point that I have cause for concern, there was a conference call the day after this Virginia redistricting effort passed, with a number of mega donors. From information leaked from this call, Obama promised one-party rule by 2029. James Carville, former Clinton advisor, has publicly come out and stated that if the Democrats win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, on day one, they should add Puerto Rico and DC as states, which would add 4 additional senators, add 4 Supreme Court justices to ensure one-party rule. James Carville stated, and I quote, "Let them eat our dust." This is the Democratic action plan. History may not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. No taxation without representation. If people feel like they're getting taxed unfairly, regulated unfairly, and they have no representation because the Senate has been stacked, the Supreme Court has been stacked, that sets the conditions for really, really bad things to come, potentially even a civil war. I don't think it'll occur like we saw in the 1860s. It'll probably look more like states standing up to the overreach of federal government, which is constitutional. States are republics themselves, and states created the federal republic, not the other way around. The Constitution lists enumerated powers, and Article 10 of the Bill of Rights clearly states that any powers not listed in the Constitution are reserved for the states. I'm going to get into this further later in the show, so I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned. But we clearly have a very determined group of people who are trying to fundamentally change our representative republic and create one-party rule, which is the antithesis of what our country stands for. This could create significant chaos economically and otherwise. Stay tuned to the next segment. I'm going to share some actions that are occurring and could occur that will prevent this course of action.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. My show focuses on creating tax-free buckets of money, insured, guaranteed, highly liquid, and the ability to create positive arbitrage.
Did you know this is the best time in over 40 years to invest in index annuities? An index annuity allows you to 1. Grow your money safely without market risk. Once gains are locked in, they're guaranteed against future market loss. 2. Double-digit potential upside on good market years with no losses in bad years. Principal is guaranteed. 3. A 7 to 8% fixed interest option is available in the first year. If you're interested in growing your money with potential index-related gains without downside market risk, this is the best time in over 40 years to consider an annuity. If your annuity is over 2 years old, the newer products likely have far superior potential returns. Please contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Economic freedom is freedom, and our freedoms are under attack. I'm Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. In this time of uncertainty, can you grow your money safely, reduce taxes, and ensure you don't run out of money in retirement? Your Personal Bank earns dividends with guarantees, insured and tax-free. For more info, tune into the Your Personal Bank Show or contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Email Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com. or 866-268-4422. And yes, you will reach me. I stated in the first segment my concern about the conditions that are being placed that could lead to our next civil war. I don't say that hyperbolically. I don't feel like I'm over-exaggerating or overreacting. I'm recognizing history, common sense, human nature. The efforts by leftists currently are in control of the Democratic Party, for the most part, have made their goals very clear that if they gain control, they want to add Puerto Rico and DC estates to stack the Senate, eliminate the filibuster, pack the Supreme Court, all to ensure one-party rule for the foreseeable future. This is the very antithesis of what we stand for as a representative republic. There are some things that are happening and could happen that will ensure that the leftist goal of one-party rule never comes to fruition. One of the key parts of that is states' rights. This is an idea that has been around since the very founding of our country. It's been badly trampled upon, but is coming back and making a revival of sorts. States created the federal government, not the other way around. And states are republics themselves also. They have elections. They're representative republics. If states had recognized initially that the federal government would take over, they never would have joined the compact. The federal government was designed to be limited. The enumerated clause, the Bill of Rights, 10th Amendment are all limitations on the federal government's power. Liberals will argue that the supremacy clause means federal government is supreme. Yet, if you understand the legal context and look at case law that goes back since the founding of our nation, supremacy is really only in cases where the federal government mediates between the states. In essence, they act as an arbitrator. Let me give you a current example of states' rights. Marijuana is illegal federally and has been for decades. Yet, many states have made marijuana use legal. Now, whether you are in favor of that or not is unimportant for this discussion. What is important is, why does the federal government not come in and arrest people for marijuana use? It's really quite simple. It's called states' rights. In most cases, outside of the enumerated powers listed in the Constitution, things like national defense, commerce, etc., the states are supreme. And it was intended that way. The original 13 colonies were very different states with different goals economies, perspectives, they came together for mutual defense. They were being threatened by the King of England. The idea was, if you supported or were in favor of one society versus another, you could go there. If you support more taxes, or less taxes for that matter, you can move to that state. If you want to give medical benefits to illegal aliens, then live in that state. You have that right. If you want abortion illegal or legal for that matter, you should move to that state that supports your values. Let me share something I don't know that I've ever heard from anywhere else. Might even blow your mind a little. Do you realize that federal taxes should be limited and minimal? If you do indeed have taxes, the majority of them should be from the state. The state should be doing far more than the federal government. Again, the Fed should focus on military, commerce, and post offices, folks, not everything else that they do. In fact, most of what the federal government is frankly unconstitutional, in my opinion. Just read the Constitution. It's not that complicated. And we did have a limited federal government for about 150 years. Governors had more power, and it was more prestigious to be a governor than have a federal position. The federal government really started gaining power in the early 1900s. Woodrow Wilson believed experts knew better. The income tax, Federal Reserve was started. Roosevelt brought in the New Deal, Social Security. The Social Security Trust Fund is not a trust and has no funds because Congress spent that decades ago. It runs primarily on current payroll taxes to pay retiree benefits. Did you know that an annuity would guarantee 4 to 5 times more returns than what Social Security pays the typical retiree? We've been bamboozled and taken advantage of and ripped off, frankly, with Social Security. If it was privatized into a guaranteed annuity, your benefits would be far greater, 4 or 5 times or more greater, guaranteed even. Now, when Roosevelt was trying to implement the New Deal, the Supreme Court initially opposed him. And this is important to understand in today's world also. Roosevelt's response was to threaten to pack the Supreme Court. And even though he didn't, just the threat alone caused the Supreme Court to back down. See, whether the Democrats actually pack the court or not today is immaterial. The threats alone are effective. And the Supreme Court is not the end-all be-all. There's been some terrible decisions made by the Supreme Court over the years. The Dred Scott decision, for example, is widely regarded as one of the worst rulings in the court's history. It ruled that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, were not U.S. citizens and had no standing to sue in federal court. Thankfully, that was reversed. In the 1940s, the Supreme Court ruled the feds had jurisdiction over personal gardens. Why? Because if you grew your own food, you might not purchase it in a store, and this affected interstate commerce. There's been some ridiculous Supreme Court decisions. But if you pack it like the Democrats are proposing, and now we get political decisions primarily, are people going to listen to the court? Eventually, they'll stop. Lyndon Johnson brought in the Great Society, Medicare, Medicaid. Trillions was spent. It created generational dependent class to rely on the government. I saw a recent video where a SNAP recipient, his food stamps, was complaining they can't buy soda and ice cream anymore because she likes her sweets. And I quote, "Somebody should do something about it." Yeah, the somebody should be her. She should go get a job if she wants to buy sweets. She has freedom, as we all do, but we don't have to pay for someone else's sweets. And the Great Society primarily destroyed nuclear families. There's less reliance on charity, church, local community, created more government power, and created more dependent people or a dependent class of people that would vote for whoever gave them more government benefits. I know there's people out there that have been criticized heavily for stating that, but it's a fact. Biden's administration opened the border, ignored existing laws. It increased the dependent class of people dependent on the government. They had the census count all people instead of just citizens, which is used for congressional reps and electoral college. This dilutes citizens' votes. History rhymes, folks. No taxation without representation. One-party rule is the antithesis of our Constitution and representative republic. It's also against 250 years of tradition. Are we going to allow the representative republic to go away without a fight? Look, again, I'm not encouraging violence, but I also am not willing to give up our way of life. Are you? And how about for our children and grandchildren? I don't have any yet, but my future grandchildren. I'm paying attention to history rhyming. And those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Obama and the leftists have a goal of one-party rule by 2029. The good news is there's a lot of people out there fighting against it. My prediction, I don't know which way this is going to go. I do have great concerns. Frankly, I believe, regardless of what happens, it's going to be a rocky road. It's going to impact the economy. It's going to be challenging. There is one financial product, though, that has stood this test of time. Their companies have never missed a dividend since literally before the Civil War. I want to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment because I'm going to share more about that and how to protect yourself financially if indeed we go into more conditions that could lead potentially, as much as I hate to say this, to a civil war. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Your Personal Bank is a financial concept that allows you to grow your money insured with guarantees, income tax-free, and highly liquid. Also, you have the potential to continue to earn interest on money you invest in other assets, purchase items, or pay expenses. How can you do this? First, invest in a high cash value policy to earn dividends. If you leave money in the policy, it'll grow like any investment, insured with guarantees and tax-free. Second, we establish a bank line of credit using the cash in the policy as collateral. When you access funds, you receive them from the bank. Typically, dividends earned are higher than the interest charged by the bank. You keep the difference. This is known as positive arbitrage. If you want to earn interest on money you spent or invest elsewhere, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com. Concerned about market risk? I'm Ferenc Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. The S&P 500 valuations are higher than at any time ever recorded in stock market history. This includes 1929 and 1999. We all know what happened afterwards. It wasn't pretty. Elevated valuations increase risk to the downside. Annuities and Your Personal Bank offer unlimited upside with no downside market risk. Your principal is guaranteed. Contact Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com to maximize returns, reduce market risk, increase liquidity, and reduce taxes. Concerned about market risk? I'm Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Diversification is one of the best ways to offset risk. Your Personal Bank is not affected by the stock or real estate markets. It is an uncorrelated asset that provides true diversification. For more info, tune in to the Your Personal Bank Show or contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. You can email me at Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, F-E-R-E-N-C at yourpersonalbank.com. Or call me toll-free, 866-268-4422. Yes, you will reach me. I know the first couple of segments were pretty heavy as I was sharing what I thought are some of the conditions that are being put in place to potentially lead us to a civil war. I certainly hope that does not happen. But if Obama stated recently that he promised one-party rule by 2029, that's not very far from now, folks. One-party rule would cause economic devastation, unlike this country has probably ever seen, maybe shy of the Great Depression. There is one type of financial company that has weathered that storm. In fact, there are 3 companies I know of that have never missed dividends since literally before the Civil War. They literally paid dividends in every single year since without skipping a beat. You want to protect yourself. If you have concerns, you want to protect yourself, this is something you may want to really consider. Obviously, with any type of protection, you want to get things going up and going before the crisis hits, because it can take some time to get enough funds allocated to these types of accounts and obtain the tax-free benefits that they offer. And what I'm referring to is high cash value dividend-paying insurance policies. Again, we have 3 companies I work with that have literally never missed the dividend since before the Civil War. If you contact me, I'll be happy to share those with you, but I'll share some of the other products that they offer that have stood the test of time through the Great Depression, also, times like that. Here's the ironic part. Many people have the mistaken impression that if you want guarantees, you have to give up strong results. That is just not the case. The reality is, oftentimes people are just not in the right indexes or the right products to ensure that they can get these strong results. They're high cash value dividend paying policies. They're paying 6.5%, income tax free with guarantees, highly liquid. Dividends are expected to increase to 7% plus over the next few years because of the long-term bond yields. If we do go into some economic crisis situation, one thing we'll see likely going forward will be increasing interest rates. When risk is higher, interest rates go up. With high levels of debt, as our federal government has, long-term bond yields stay higher. This means these types of products could likely offer some of the best returns of anything you own. Put things in perspective, in the 1970s, the last time we had a high interest rate environment, many of these companies were paying 12 and 14% annual interest dividends. Again, with histories of paying dividends over 100 years plus, some as far back as literally before the Civil War. They guarantee the downside, they guarantee the principal, and some even guarantee certain interest rates going forward. Another tool that if you want to ensure that you're going to have income going forward, regardless of what happens, are guaranteed lifetime income products. These are much like a pension or Social Security type check. With companies that weathered the Great Depression and some even the Civil War without missing a payment. That's how secure and strong these companies are. I had a meeting this past week that was very interesting, where a gentleman was interested in guaranteed lifetime income. As I stated with him, guaranteed lifetime income is really quite simple. It is what it sounds like. Your income is guaranteed for life. You cannot outlive it. There's no moving parts. You give the company a certain amount of money, and they're going to pay you a certain amount of income guaranteed regardless of how long you live. This gentleman happened to be 69 years old, wanted to start his income right away, 30 days. In his case, we had products that were paying him 8.12% annually based on his contribution, guaranteed for the rest of his life. Why is that so important? It's guaranteed. You cannot outlive it. Also, if you're familiar with the 4% withdrawal rule that's typically recommended with many portfolios, it's recommended that if you take a 4% withdrawal of your portfolio when you start retirement, you have a high likelihood of success of not running out of money. It's not guaranteed, but your likelihood of success is quite high, 90% range or so. There's 2 problems with that. One, it's not guaranteed. It's subject to market risk, returns, what happens in the future. If, as I stated earlier, you have concerns about the future, I think some of those are valid. I'm not trying to over-exaggerate the situation, but I want people to be aware that if we go into a one-party rule type of situation as a country, which is the Democrats' stated goal from Obama himself by 2029, think California. Think about the economic situation of California across the entire country. What would that look like? How would that impact the markets, the economy? Probably not in a good way for the most part. The nice part about the guaranteed lifetime income is, with this gentleman, age 69, he can withdraw over 8% per year, guaranteed for life. Cannot outlive that. Well, is 8% better than the 4% withdrawal rule? Well, of course it is. That's double the amount of money you could access guaranteed. You can choose when to start that income. So if you wanted to defer and wait, each year he waited, the percentage he could withdraw increased. We have products that, if you're willing to defer, will allow you 9 and even 10% withdrawal rates. It's the golden era of fixed assets. Best time in over 40 years for these types of products. Some even offer bonuses, as this one did. Some offer significant signing bonuses. So therefore, the amount of funds you receive guaranteed for life is increased. Now, I'm not necessarily stating you should put your entire assets into a guaranteed lifetime income. I discussed this with this gentleman himself also. If you have enough assets, there's no reason why you can't put a portion into a guaranteed lifetime income and a portion into the next product I'm going to discuss, are index products, where you can get significant, strong upside potential growth with no downside market risk. We have products that have averaged over 11% average annual return for the past decade. And if you happen to have an index annuity already, we have products that offer 20% plus signing bonuses. So it offset any early surrender penalty. And in most cases, your average annual return is double or triple even of what it was in the past. But as I pointed out to this gentleman, you can allocate a portion to guaranteed lifetime income, for example. In his case, figuring out how much do you need a month to live on just to pay for the basics. You could allocate that portion to the guaranteed lifetime income. This way, you know that money's coming in no matter what, guaranteed for life. You cannot outlive it. And then the remainder could be allocated to an index growth product. Unlimited upside, strong historical returns, 11% plus over the last decade with no downside market risk. The principal is guaranteed. You like that idea? By the way, one quick aside, if you allocate some funds into a guaranteed lifetime income product, they will typically pay you a signing bonus, give you strong guaranteed lifetime income returns you cannot outlive. You decide when you can turn it on, but if you pass away prematurely and do not spend all of the funds, they're not lost. They go to your heirs. So regardless of what happens, either you live a long time, you're not going to outlive the income, which is a good thing, or if unfortunately you do not live so long, actuarial average, the unspent portion goes to your heirs. So the money's not lost. But if we segue to the other product that was quite interesting, I shared last week that I was meeting with a 92-year-old. We had this meeting recently with her, both of her daughters, and son-in-law. And all four of them found the information extremely interesting and beneficial. It turns out she had current annuities already that were not doing so well. She had S&P 500 indexes, which are typically a strong index, double-digit returns historically over the last decade. Plus, I can show that to you. But her problem was she was in a product that had a very low cap. It was restricting her growth. Her cap, in fact, was only 3% per year. Now, this was a sharp person. She understood this and understood why she was not getting a good return. Regardless of what that index did, if it went up 10% in a year, for example, she would only get 3%. Well, even at age 92, I was able to show her a product that offered her a 9% cap. No fee, 100% participation, 9%. Well, that's triple the return that she's been getting. But that's triple the potential upside returns that she's been receiving. And we looked at the past 10 years, for example. If she had this product instead of the one she currently owned, 8 of the 10 years she would have received 9% instead of 3%. 2 of the past 10 years, S&P 500 index was down, but with an index product, you don't lose. So those years she would not have lost. So 8 of the 10 past years, she would have been much better off. In fact, triple the return. And this is for a 92-year-old. Then I quickly showed, because both her daughters and son-in-law were involved with this meeting and had questions themselves and interest themselves, I showed where for somebody who's 85 or younger, we have products with over 12% caps. So even higher upside potential, or even better, products with no caps, unlimited upside, no fee, and participation rates of close to 100% or more even. And all that means is whatever the index does that year, you get the majority, if not all of that return with no fee, no cap, unlimited upside. It truly is the golden era of fixed assets. We're seeing the best numbers we've seen in 40 plus years. A-rated companies, been around for decades, some of them even before the Civil War, have paid dividends consistently without skipping a beat through Great Depression, Civil War, etc. So if you want strong returns, you want good upside potential gains, yet you would like some guarantees, index products provide that. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. Stay tuned in the last segment. I have a few other thoughts on what I shared with these clients this past week. I'll finish up with some good news.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ferenc. For more information, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. My show focuses on creating tax-free buckets of money, insured, guaranteed, highly liquid, and the ability to create positive arbitrage. Did you know this is the best time in over 40 years to invest in index annuities? An index annuity allows you to 1. Grow your money safely without market risk. Once gains are locked in, they're guaranteed against future market loss. 2. Double-digit potential upside on good market years with no losses in bad years. Principal is guaranteed. 3. A 7 to 8% fixed interest option is available in the first year. If you're interested in growing your money with potential index-related gains without downside market risk, this is the best time in over 40 years to consider an annuity. If your annuity is over 2 years old, the newer products likely have far superior potential returns. Please contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com. When people contact me, they often ask, what exactly do you do? And yes, if you contact me, I, Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show, will respond, not an assistant. I help people increase their returns, reduce taxes, increase positive cash flow, and reduce market risk. I accomplish your goals using various financial tools, including Your Personal Bank. If you have questions or would like to discuss your situation, contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. Want more information? Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ferenc Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ferenc. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com or email Ferenc, F-E-R-E-N-C, no E on the end, Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com or toll free 866-268-4422. Yes, you will reach me. One of the questions from the meeting I had with the 92-year-old this week, both of her daughters and son-in-law, was, you seem quite knowledgeable and quite busy with many clients. How do you manage to service all of those clients? I explained to her quite simply that I focus on guaranteed products with strong returns. That's a fallacy, a myth out there that many people think if you want guarantees, you have to give up strong returns. It's just not true. You're just in the wrong indexes, frankly, in most cases. Like this 92-year-old who had a 3% annual cap, and even at age 92, I was able to show her a 9% annual cap product And that wasn't necessarily the best product available for her. But again, it was triple the upside potential gains. 8 of the last 10 years, she would have had triple the returns versus what she actually received. And then the down years would have been the same because both index annuity products guarantee the downside, the principal. But her question was very valid. And I shared with her years ago, I used to do annual reviews. And what I found was, for the most part, although it was nice to meet with people, it was an incredible waste of time. Why? Nothing had changed. Nothing had happened. So I changed it around. I said, hey, if you have something going on, you have a financial decision to make, or you just want to chat, reach out to me. I have some clients I communicate with quite often because they have a lot of stuff going on. I have others I don't hear from for several years. Why? Because nothing has changed. Their accounts are guaranteed. They know that if the market tanks, they don't lose. I don't have to respond to dozens of people like the typical financial advisor when the joke in our industry is when the market hiccups, you've got 20 or 30 people calling you that you have to calm down. That's the reality of the financial world for most advisors. Not me. It's not an issue. It allows me to be much more efficient. Each time we do talk, whether it's by a phone call, email, Zoom, whatever it may be, whatever we need to do, we have something to talk about. We have something to discuss. It keeps our time efficient for both of us. It's something I prefer, and most of my clients do. My agency has over 5,000 clients. Obviously, I don't deal with all of them. I focus on the people that reach out to me from this radio show and referrals. Everyone that reaches out to me through this medium or a referral, I make a commitment to work with them myself as long as they want me to. I have a number of agents around the country that if they would prefer to work with someone else, you have that option. Most prefer to work with me, and that's fine. That's great. I enjoy it. We develop a relationship over time. I get an understanding of your situation, what you're looking for, what's your goals, what do you want to accomplish? And I do my best to provide the tools to help you get there, get the best returns, eliminate the risk, reduce your taxes, any number of things that you may not have even considered or thought of, I bring to the table. And when something in the economy or interest rates or whatever changes, it's quite easy for me to send out an email out to everyone, notifying and educating what they need to do with their accounts. Certainly, they can contact me if they have any questions. I find, for the most part, most of us are pretty busy. We appreciate advice when it's needed or wanted. We don't want to waste a lot of time either dealing with things that are unnecessary. As I get to work with a client, we typically meet a few times to get a good handle on your situation, what you're looking for, what your goals are, etc. And then once we have things established in place, and unless things significantly change on your part, fairly short communications, whether by phone, email, or Zoom call, usually suffice to maintain that relationship and your goals and what needs to be done. I try to tailor to each of my clients' needs. It does require listening, active listening. I know that's in short supply in this world, especially in the financial industry. Number one complaints clients have about the financial industry. That's why I try to take my time to listen and ask questions to get a good understanding of you, your concerns, your goals, all of that. In fact, going back to the gentleman, we were discussing guaranteed lifetime income. We also discussed growth index products. He understood the unlimited upside, downside protection. But as he pointed out, he understood that some years, if the index went down, although he wouldn't lose, he wouldn't make anything either. And I said, of course, there's a risk of return there. A typical product in the market certainly can lose. So that's even worse, particularly for somebody who's risk adverse or in or nearing retirement. They don't have time to make up for those losses. But he was weighing, should I go for the guaranteed lifetime income? Don't have to worry about it. Set it, forget it. I know I've got a check in the mail every month the rest of my life. I can't outlive it. Or should I try to go for something which that paid him 8.1% annually guaranteed for life? Or should he try for something to get a higher return? Again, I showed him products that have averaged over 11% average annual return over the past decade with no downside market risk. And we were weighing the idea of should we allocate some all to one or the other or some to both. But as we spoke, and this is where I find sometimes I can be of the greatest assistance, I stated to him, look, whether you go one direction or another, it's no skin off my nose. But what I'm trying to figure out is what you're looking for, what's more important to you. And I mentioned that several times he had expressed the guaranteed lifetime income sounded really good to him. I reminded him of that. And he goes, and his response was, you're right. The more I think about it, the more I like that idea, the more comfortable I am with that, and the more it fits my particular goals. And that's what we try to drive at. And sometimes it just takes a sounding board with somebody like myself who has the knowledge and education and experience to be able to show you the strengths and limitations of each particular product. There's no such thing as a perfect tool. But if you're trying to hammer and nail, it's really hard to do that with a saw very effectively. It's not the saw's fault. It's not designed to hammer nails, that you need a hammer. If you want to cut wood, you use a saw. And as I pointed out to him, my goal is to try to figure out, are you more of a hammer person or a saw person? I don't have a dog in the hunt. Which direction you go really, in my opinion, should not matter to the agent or advisor. If an agent or advisor gives you blanket statements that one is good and the other's bad, they're just sharing their bias, not what's a better fit or tool for you. Unfortunately, it's very common in this industry, and it's a pet peeve of mine, that when I'm training agents, I try to help them understand that this isn't about you, it's about the client. It's about the client's needs, their goals. If you could wave a wet magic wand, what would you like to accomplish? Been sharing this more recently on shows because I get asked this question all the time. What fees do you charge? People are so used to being charged fees, money under management, etc., by financial people. They just assume that's how it works. Regardless of the title of a financial advisor, I'm sure you can appreciate if they recommend a financial product to you, they're getting paid by the company somehow. And in most cases, and this is statistical fact, it's by a commission. The vast majority of financial people charge money under management. That is something I certainly could do, but chose not to 26 years ago. I learned that from my mentor, watched him build a successful agency from scratch to over 4,000 clients in a few years. I've done the same thing. When we started our agency 21 years ago, after my manager and mentor was killed in an airplane crash tragically, started an agency from scratch, and we've built it to well over 5,000 clients over the years. And one of the key things is, if we're not charging you 1% annually fees, for example, in a decade, you got 10% more money, don't you? That's without compounding. So it's actually higher than that. And don't worry, we're still getting paid by the companies, typically through commissions, as most financial people do. So we're doing fine. I'm blessed that I have people reach out to me from this radio show that airs coast to coast. I understand not every financial person has that benefit. So I'm not disparaging what they're doing. I understand why they're having to charge for their time. It's valuable. But I'm just blessed that I don't have to do that, because a lot of the education that many of my prospective clients obtain before I meet is through this radio show. It's not uncommon where somebody will reach out to me and say, hey, I heard what you were talking about. I've been listening for a while. I have a few questions about my situation. And oftentimes their next question really is, well, what do we need to do to get started? It's not that I'm trying to push anybody into anything. It's just they come in to the relationship far more educated than what would be typical, which means I would have to take more time to educate each individual one-on-one, which is less efficient, takes more time, and I'd probably have to charge fees for my time too. I did this with speaking to investor groups prior to COVID and then the radio since. So I understand I've been blessed, and I'm able to pass that blessing on to my clients. and they like it. They appreciate it. And that's why we have an extremely high retention rate of clients. We try to find the best tool, fits their goal financially. We show them products that have tremendous returns with guarantees. That's a fallacy. If you want guarantees, you don't have to give up strong growth. That is completely untrue. Oftentimes, we reduce their taxes, increase the liquidity, allow people to sleep at night. And if you do have concerns about some of the issues that I brought up earlier in this show, that there could be structural changes coming soon with one-party rule, for example. Think California across the country, economically. I certainly hope that doesn't occur. But if it does, that is the active goal of the Democratic leadership right now and the leftists. They're stating it themselves. So there's a fight ahead of us for the soul of our country. Are we going to continue to be a representative republic? Are we going to continue to have the freedoms that we enjoy? Are states going to have to stand up and fight against the federal overreach? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't have a crystal ball. But I think it's safe to say there's likely going to be some chaotic situations, uncertainty, which will create volatility. Having guarantees is always beneficial, but it could become very, very critical. If you want to navigate this, thrive in this uncertain, likely volatile path we're heading down, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. Stay tuned next week to the Your Personal Bank Show for more great info. And as always, as long as it's on our money, in God we trust. This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Your Personal Bank is a financial concept that allows you to grow your money insured with guarantees, income tax-free, and highly liquid. Also, you have the potential to continue to earn interest on money you invest in other assets, purchase items, or pay expenses. How can you do this? First, invest in a high cash value policy to earn dividends. If you leave money in the policy, it'll grow like any investment, insured with guarantees and tax-free. Second, we establish a bank line of credit using the cash in the policy as collateral. When you access funds, you receive them from the bank. Typically, dividends earned are higher than the interest charged by the bank. You keep the difference. This is known as positive arbitrage. If you want to earn interest on money you spent or invest elsewhere, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or 866-268-4422 for more info. That's yourpersonalbank.com.
Contact Ferenc at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Some products discussed may have limitations and not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may change.
Concerned about market risk? I'm Ferenc Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. The S&P 500 valuations are higher than at any time ever recorded in stock market history. This includes 1929 and 1999. We all know what happened afterwards. It wasn't pretty. Elevated valuations increase risk to the downside. Annuities and Your Personal Bank offer unlimited upside with no downside market risk. Your principal is guaranteed. Contact Ferenc at yourpersonalbank.com to maximize returns, reduce market risk, increase liquidity, and reduce taxes.